So, good morning, everyone. Uh, my dear friend Mary was trying to watch this morning as she was dog sitting her grand dog, Goose. So I hope Goose got his bone, and Mary can't figure out how to get back on, so she'll watch the tape. So, as Peter stated, um, today is my day to give my talk. I was initially overwhelmed by the whole process of doing this, and I made a couple of attempts, and oh, it was just so junky and trite. And then Peter told me, just write something from your heart. So the best way for me to do that is to just tell my story. And the way that I can express myself best is in the form of a letter. So this talk will be a letter that I am writing to the Sangha. And the day that I did it was a dark, stormy afternoon, spring afternoon in Maine. And I sat down, and the first couple pages just were tough going. And then I kind of slid into it. And 10 pages later, it was done. And so I tried not to mess with it too much, and just say it as I recalled it that day a little while ago. So thank you all for being here. Oh, and there's Mary. Dear Sangha, I have nothing to teach today. I am your fellow wanderer along the bog of my quickly passing life. But now that I'm a retiring Shuso, I have the opportunity to demonstrate to the entire Sangha how little I actually know. Fortunately, in our Zen practice, not knowing seems to be highly regarded. However, since I know so little, I'm very curious about what I don't know. Thus, I keep trying to know, despite knowing I should not know. My curiosity to know shifted into high gear the day I attended my first full-day Zen retreat. I had read neuroscientist Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, in which he talked about how his spirituality helped him understand the nature of mind. Plus, he described ecstatic mental states achieved through intense meditation practice. Sign me up, I thought. The quick response of my Google search led me to believe I was on the right path. Immediately, I found an all-day retreat of the type recommended by Harris, scheduled soon in Midcoast, Maine, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I had been on a couple of yoga retreats. I was expecting soft music, some stretching, meditation, maybe a social tea. Instead, we sat on hard black cushions facing the wall for most of the long 9 hours. Our instructions had been, do not move unless you need to call 911. We sat in 40-minute blocks with crazy slow walking in between sets. We remained seated through lunch when we were given bowls and chopsticks, while a fellow participant came around delivering rice and gruel. In the afternoon, we had a chance to speak with the guest teacher who was leading the group that day. I asked one question: how do I deal with screaming back pain? His answer: just put the pain in your hara, 3 inches below your navel. Oh, right, I thought. At the end of the longest day I have spent since giving birth, The, the zombies in the room came to life, friendly and chatting about what a good day it had been. I was giddy on the way home, so delighted to be free again. But I couldn't help but think, what do they get from this? And how do I find out? Serendipitously, the visiting teacher had just moved to Portland to open a Zen Buddhist center. He was renting space, which was a 5-minute walk from my house. A sign from Sam Harris to retreat to teacher, bingo, ecstatic state was next. Thus, for a few years, I practiced what I would call macho Zen, with increasing demands on my participation. We studied Dogen, whom I was never able to understand, and we listened to equally confusing talks. My curiosity increased along with my confusion. There must be some payoff for this effort, but it never paid out for me. When the teacher announced he was moving to a different state, I was distraught. How would I ever satisfy my curiosity? Had I wasted these years for nothing? Yet, after his departure, I felt a sense of lightness and freedom. I began to think maybe this experience was not for me. Then, gentle Peter Wall arrived. We talked over coffee about his approach to Zen, and I joined his little group of wild foxes, sitting on the floor of the behavioral health waiting room each Wednesday evening, with Peter guiding us, and Willie, the chocolate lab, teaching us about presence and unconditional love. By example, of course. I was 70 years old at this point. I had achieved no progress towards Sam Harris's promise of an ecstatic state of mind, though Peter seemed disinterested in such a pursuit. I recall one evening bringing a book I had been reading by the physicist Alan Lightman called Searching for Stars on an Island in Maine. In the book, he described a spectacular experience one dark night. He was in his small boat, heading to his island home in Casco Bay. Lightman turned off the motor, lay down the boat, and watched the stars. He described a mystical experience where he felt himself falling into infinity. He was part of the stars. He felt connected, merging into grand eternal unity. You can Google Alan Lightman boat and it'll give you the description. The Sangha listened as I read, then shifted their eyes towards Peter. Without stopping a minute about how to respond, Peter said, "He needs to be careful out there in the bay without an engine." As I said, disinterested. I figured I better find another way to hasten this process. And Michael Pollan gave me the idea in his book, How to Change Your Mind. As soon as there was a COVID vaccine, I traveled to Jamaica for a guided, legal, psychedelic mushroom experience. I suspected Peter would not support this endeavor, so I sheepishly told him what I was doing in an email shortly before I left. I don't recall his response, so I believe it was something as benign as his response to Alan Lightman's boat story. Probably like, be sure to use your sunscreen. 12 of us participated in the Jamaica event, led by 3 facilitators and a volunteer who managed logistics and assisted the guides. After a number of small group sessions about goals and preparation, we met for the ceremony, lying on our individual mats in a beautiful room one might expect for a tropical yoga class. The mushrooms were delivered in a pottery bowl. We ate, lay down on our mats, and waited. At the end of the 4-hour ceremony, we each sat up and gave descriptions of our experiences. One man was feeling he was turning into a tree so he could continue to support his struggling family. One was resolving difficulties with a departed relative. One just laughed the whole time and was physically dancing to express his glee. I was the only one who experienced none of this because I was nauseous the whole time. Why didn't I just spend the day lounging next to Montego Bay? I asked myself as my stomach churned. I was the last one to report to the group, and I said, this experience sucked. The room went quiet. The group and the guides were sympathetic to my plight and helped me salvage some wisdom over the next day of integration. I concluded that the message I had received from the mushroom was, stick with your Zen practice. Once back home, I wondered whether to continue to direct my way toward an enlightened experience. Sam Harris, Alan Lightman, Michael Pollan, none of them had answers for me. However, I discovered a koan that did. Case 19 of the Wuman Kan is titled, Ordinary Mind is the Way. It goes like this. Joshu earnestly asked Nansen, what is the way? Nansen answered, the ordinary mind is the way. Joshu asked, should I direct myself toward it or not? Nansen said, if you try to turn toward it, you go against it. Joshu asked, if I do not try to turn toward it, how can I know it is the way? Nansen answered, the way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion, not knowing is blank consciousness. When you have reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as the great empty firmament. How can it be talked about on a level of right and wrong? At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. About a year ago, I was renewing my license at the DMV. The fact that I had to drive around the parking lot 3 times before finding someone who was pulling out of the space was a bad omen for the wait ahead of me. And I was already a month late renewing, so I had to persist. Sure enough, they were currently serving number 64, and I was number 138. So I sat for a long time, longer than Alan Lightman was lying in his boat. The room was crowded. Life's drama was all around me. We were of many colors and languages. Children played games on the floor. Antsy teenagers roamed the periphery. After running down the battery on my phone, I just settled into where I was. No resistance, just there. My awareness was filled with the low hum of waiting room conversations. Murmurs of different languages filled this Tower of Babel. I was reminded of the patois I had heard each evening when I was in Jamaica. From my room, I could hear the native cooks and gardeners gather after dinner on wooden kegs outside the kitchen. I could not understand the tales being told, but I felt the soothing rhythm of their melodic voices, and I understood their gentle laughter. The calm I felt on the edge of Montego Bay was similar to what I'm feeling now at the DMV, as the voices of English and foreign language speakers blended together like a shared lullaby, soothing and laughing with each other. I felt like I was melting into the crowd. By my quiet presence, I was soothing them, and they were soothing me. These were my neighbors, and I was far from Jamaica. I felt a unity at the DMV. We all needed the same care and attention. We all had the same responsibility to wait patiently until our number was called. Fate had thrown us into the same room. As the hours passed, we had so much in common that our differences faded. I was with my peeps at the DMV, and they were with me. We were the one body of DMV fellowship. When my number was finally called, the clerk apologized for the long wait and told me he had not had time to get lunch. Neither had I. I hope it's okay that I grab a cookie, he said as he reached down to a package of oatmeal cookies next to the vision testing machine. Want one? Sure, I smiled. So the clerk and I ate our cookies together at the DMV while he tested and wrote and laminated. I confess to feeling a little sad to leave that day. However, as I walked up the exit ramp, there were high fives going around and some good-natured exchanges comparing how long we had been there. Alan Lightman was part of the stars. I was part of the DMV. Did I merge into grand eternal unity? Well, kind of. The cacophony of life force moving through us was vast and boundless. I was not enlightened, but I was the ordinary mind of the DMV, and that was good enough. Just pure swirling energy, lightness of being, not wishing things were different than they were. I recently finished a novel by Nathan Hill called The Knicks. In it, there was a scene in Chicago during the 1968 demonstrations at the Democratic National Convention. In the book, Walter Cronkite was reporting as violence against the protesters was taking place. The book read, Cronkite wanted to tell his audience that the reality they were seeing on television is not reality. Imagine a single drop of water. That's the protest. Now, put that drop of water into a bucket. That's the protest movement. Now, drop that bucket into Lake Michigan. That's reality. In the book, Cronkite understood how TV contributed to people seeing the entire world confined to a single drop of water. When I read the passage, I felt it was a metaphor for my Zen practice. Before I began practicing, my mind was like that single drop of water, confined by all the thoughts in my head, judgments, fears, concerns about who I was, who I would want to be. That single drop mind would only see the inefficiency and dissatisfaction of waiting at the DMV. What I have experienced over the past 10 years of practice is a gradual transformation, just as Peter predicted. The world I perceive is more expansive, more worthy of love and awe as I let go of confining thoughts. I can see a bigger picture. I'm not yet Lake Michigan, but maybe my drop has at least expanded into the bucket. As Nansen said, when you have reached the true way, you will find it to be vast and boundless. Dogen tells me I am already in the true way. I just need to realize it by focusing on what's here. Embrace it. Be intimate with it. Don't wish things were different than they are. As James Parker said in his Ode to Low Expectations, the message from the heart of the universe is simply appreciate what's in front of you, even if what's in front of me is the DMV. Extend forgiveness to the entire idiotic world. Extend forgiveness to your idiot self. Rest in the ordinary mind. And since this is a letter to my Sangha, I want to say, I extend love and thanks to all of you as we walk our boggy ways together. We meet each Sunday with open hearts, sharing freely from our deepest recesses. We grapple with knowing and not knowing, with a world in chaos and deterioration, with showing compassion, even to those who are at odds with our values. I would rather be with you than in Alan Lightman's boat. I like our ordinary minds. What is the way? Asked Joshu. Nansen answered, the ordinary mind is the way. Joshu answered, should I direct myself toward it or not? Nansen said, if you try to turn toward it, you go against it. Joshu asked, if I do not try to turn toward it, how can I know that is the way? Nansen answered, the way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. When you have reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it is as vast and boundless as the great empty firmament. How can it be talked about on a level of right and wrong? At these words, Joshu suddenly was enlightened, as are we all. In conclusion, though I have nothing to teach you today, maybe you will smile the next time you go to the DMV. Maybe you will experience it with your ordinary mind. Thank you.
Wow. Brilliant. On a par with any Shuso talk, any Dharma talk that I have heard. Wonderful, wonderful.
Well, my friend Michael told me before he joined today that he had just listened to Garrison Keillor and Ram Dass. Is that right, Michael? Is he here? Oh, he left. Oh, there he is. And he said not to put any pressure on you. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Peter.
Now, those of you who've been to Shuso Hosen before, would someone like to tell Susan what follows the talk?
Questions?
Yes, something called Dharma combat. If we were actually doing this in the Zendo, there'd be some marching around. Susan would march around with a sword like a samurai, and then it would be followed by Dharma combat. So we're going to do that right now. And the way that operates is anyone that wishes may ask Susan a question. And you proceed your question by saying, Shuso, please, and then ask the question. And then when she's responded, you thank her and bow. Very
Peter,
simple.
you didn't tell me we were going to do this.
I didn't, did I?
Yeah.
One of the great pleasures of being a Zen teacher is that it's a license to be sadistic.
So please, what do you do with that pain in your back?
Well, I no longer sit on one of those hard black cushions that didn't last past much after 70. And so now I'm in a chair and I put a cushion behind my back, and I never quite was able to figure out how to put it in my hara. But if anyone has an idea, I'm open to it. 3 inches below the navel, I guess, but I don't know. Thank you.
Shuso, please. I have a question about your thoughts on being already enlightened versus becoming enlightened, and how that correlates with ordinary mind.
Oh, you're asking a big question that I'm not prepared to answer, but just from my own experience, I will say that Peter was right, at least for me. Some people do have these fabulous enlightenment experiences, and maybe it's in my future, who knows? But Peter has long told us this is just a process, and transformation will be occurring, but it's slow and gradual. And that's kind of what I found to be the case, realized that day in the DMV and at other times also. So I guess I would just say hang in there. And the ordinary mind part comes to me because, as Peter knows, I have said so often, well, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere with this, and nothing's happening, and I'm not having these great experiences. And he refers me to ordinary mind. Stay with what's in front of you, what things the way they are. That's maybe the biggest lesson. Things the way. Thank you for your question.
You should say, may your life go well.
Oh, may your life go well.
Come on, people. If you don't ask her questions, she's going to have to do the whole thing over again. This is symbolic. It could be, you could ask her why the sky is blue, whatever you'd like. She's on the hook for it.
Susho, please. Without speaking and without silence, how can you express the truth?
Just be here. May your life go well.
And you.
Susho, please. I've been thinking about our conversation last week in Sangha, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about ordinary mind and one of the topics we discussed last week, which was evil or the nature of evil.
I think that ordinary mind is open to everything in front of us, everything we are, and everything we are has a dark side and a light side. And some of us to greater degrees than others. And I think that evil is part of what we have to live with in this world. So I don't shy away from that word. I think it's an important part of accepting it's there and also fully comprehending that there's a light side also, which is, I think, where we are. May your life go well. And I will just divulge that the day that I came back, that Harry and I came back from that full day of Zen, there was a gathering at our condo association, and Doug was living here at the time. And I knew that he had practiced Zen with a Korean teacher. And I grabbed him and I said, Doug, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. He sat there and said, oh, yes, I recognize it all. So thank you, Doug. May your life go well.
Shuso, please. How do we end homelessness?
Oh,
Open your doors.
mm.
May your life go well.
Shuso, please. How do you learn to love yourself?
Can't. I'm sorry, let me start again. Soshi, please. When you said I have nothing to teach today, what came to my mind immediately is you have everything to teach today. And it's a koan. And then I remember that the Swan Tzu, I believe he said this, she who knows, who says he knows does not know. He who says he does not know, knows. So it's not really me. I'm not asking you a question, but just acknowledging sitting with not knowing is the way, and just holding that.
Thank you.
Well said. May your life go well.
And you shall see some.
That is a good point about sitting with what you don't know, what you don't like. It's the biggest practice, probably.
Shuso, please. How does it feel to have had the opportunity to give your first Dharma talk?
I have to say, once I freed myself from the confines of needing to sound wise and quote some lofty Zen ancients, and just tell my story, that process went pretty easily. And then leading up to today, I was really looking forward to sharing it with you all. We're here every Sunday, and we know little bits and pieces of our lives, but this was just my opportunity to spill all the beans. So it feels very good. Thank you, RJ. May your life go well.
Shuso, please. How long did it take you to come up with the whole Dharma talk?
Three to 4 hours. It was maybe one of the best parts of this whole process, because it just came out. I had a couple of ideas. I had just read that one book about the bucket and the drop of water. And so that was in my mind. And the other experiences were more, I kind of knew I wanted to talk about those. So when I just started writing, and I just hand wrote, I had a piece of paper and just hand wrote, and out it came. So it was almost enjoyable.
Thank you.
If I liked or disliked, which of course I don't, I just accept what's in front of me. It was good. May your life go well.
Okay, one last question. Who would like to ask the last question?
Shuso, please. Have there been moments that you have realized humility without pride?
Oh my. Well, now you're getting down to what's really going on, which is when I sat and wrote all this, and then I read it, and I thought, oh, not bad, Livingston. And even in anticipation of today, as I looked forward to delivering this, I was aware that there was an element of pride in that. So though I talk about being humble, I still have a ways to go.
Mhm.
May your life go well.
Mhm.
Thanks, Cal.
Mhm. Mhm.
Peter?
Harry?
Okay, thank you. This is perhaps not a question, it's a statement that you are wonderful. Thank you.
And you've been along for all of these experiences, well, except for the DMV. You were along with the rest of the experiences. So thank you. May your life go well. May your life go very, very well.
So if we were in person, we would end the ceremony and then we would have the traditional eating of gelato and Pepperidge Farm cookies, which unfortunately will have to wait till the summer. So when we have an in-person ceremony this summer, we will do that because the process isn't ended until the final cookie is crunched. And so there. And the other thing is, which I've mentioned before, but I'll mention again. So we have an on deck, it's called an on deck Shuso, waiting to come in after these guys finally get out of here. And that will be RJ. So she's waiting very patiently, and we'll have to figure out a time to do the Shuso entering ceremony. It's a little different, a little challenging to do this all online. But what I want to say, and I think you all see this and all appreciate it, this is such a beautiful Sangha. And you all care so much for each other. And it was so apparent to me in the wishes that you sent to Susan prior to today, how much meaning and caring develops in spite of the fact that we are, in some instances, not even in the same state or the same time zone. And yet something happens, and it's wonderful. It's very beautiful. So thank you all for your practice.
And Peter, I'll just add, as you and I discussed, since today is Cinco de Mayo, I'm giving out margaritas to everyone. So hang around.
How about that? But if you're driving, we don't recommend the margaritas. Okay.
Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Everyone, thank you.
Congratulations, Susan. Great job.
Oh, thanks, Rob.
Magnificent. Yeah.
Wonderful, Susan. Thank you.
Rob, I almost considered talking about our experience as we were coming up the stairs to do your Jukai. That'll be the next one.
That, I mean, it was brilliant as it was, but that might have been even more brilliant. I'm not sure.
Stay tuned.
Congratulations, Susan.
Thanks, Kathy.
Wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
since we're all one, clearly this means that we're off the hook because you've done it.
Done.
Thank you, Susan. What a wonderful gift you've given us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre.
That was really beautiful, Susan. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for taping it or recording it so my children can watch.
That's wonderful.
Blessings, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'll leave so everybody can leave.
Mhm.